just not instantly aware of what is the best option to deal with whatever threat is on the board.
I mean, even if like you have like the knowledge in your head, when you're in the moment, usually like your main hero, the one you know best, is the one that like you're going to be readiest with.
Agreed.
Although these players so experienced that they actually might be that way with multiple heroes because they are so experienced and that good.
So we've got Warp Spider and Force Commander once again. Warp Spider, I feel like, is pretty excellent in this map too. Because of this left part of the map, he can zip back and forth across that spot.
Yeah,
Which,
can very easily apply some VP pressure. And if he even gets like some upgrades, like improved targeters, he might even be able to do some generator bashing that way.
and see, here we go, right out of
Right
the gate.
there.
Yep.
And it's like he's not even committing to fighting the Force Commander and the Scouts, and they can't even do a whole lot about that.
Yeah,
He
and
could even
with this triple scout build, he doesn't have anything safe. He could be able to cap his natural farm right there. You can see the Warp Spider actually went down to check it and see if anything was there. Noisy going for those triple scouts again. See if he can pull it off. It worked out well for him in Tier 1, but he kind of dropped Micro a couple times in the later game, and without having those extra capping squads, it kind of cost him there at the end. Because at the end, it was to the point that Hammer also needed to commit his entire force to deal with Noisy, having those big, beefy melee squads. The scouts really could have kind of spread out and counter-capped in the late game, and really it was the victory points in the end that killed Noisy, because they both still had reasonable and comparable armies.
And, well, the Warp Spider Exarch, he went over to Noisy's natural, capped the natural, so he's actually going for early VP pressure himself. I thought he might go for Noisy's natural power, but he doesn't.
No, I think in this map, like, just keeping that, like, if you can keep that natural capped, I think it's almost not necessarily a detriment that Noisy's on this side of the map, but since it is such an advantage for the Warp Spider to hop across that and put pressure on the natural VP of Noisy, it might be a slight edge in favor of Hammer, the way the spawns worked.
I mean, it looks like he's going to play that VP pressure, and, I mean, if anything, the Warp Spider Exarch should really have the advantage in, like, the VP game, like, the whole game. And I think it's going to be crucial for Noisy to have more of a military victory in this case.
Oh, Warp Spider teleported into a bad position.
Can he force melee with attacks, potentially knock him down? It's a close call.
The Force Commander's in retreat path as well. If he pulls
damage.
The Force Commander off of that point, he might be able to get the swing here.
It's a close call.
60 health, let's see.
Go for it.
20 health, not quite going to do it. He needed one more swing on that. That would have been a nice small victory for Noisy in the early game here.
But it looks like Hammer rather is really trying to not let Noisy like capture points. I think Noisy will finally get the middle under the suppression of the Guardian weapon team, but he won't be able to stick around.
Yeah, he does get that, but the Banshees are still controlling the far side. Might even tag a gen node here. Noisy going for the Devastator this time. Let's see if he decides to stick with it. But
and those Howling Banshees not taking a whole lot of damage because they are getting some resistance to the range damage from being in melee. They might lose a mono, but they might also get out of here like just fine. Take out the generator, retreat instantly, and possibly lose nothing for it aside from the fact that they're now off the field.
Yeah, that's a nice 125 requisition win right there, plus slowing down the power income, slowing down that tech race for Noisy. Ooh, even tags a attack model there in green cover.
Yeah, I thought we might have seen like the scouts go around, try to force melee with the Guardian weapon team, but it didn't happen right there, although he was still able to force it off. And we do see the Devastator now actually in play.
Yeah, do you think Noisy will go for both the Devastator and the Assault Marines in this game, or do you think he's gonna just try to stick with that and maybe spend some money upgrading these scouts or something along those lines?
I don't know, I doubt we'll see the Assault Marines just because it would be so much of an investment in Tier 1. And it could just set him like too far back in tech. Especially when he doesn't even have like more than a single generator.
Yeah, that's valid. He hasn't managed to get a gen farm up yet. And he's gone a pretty wreck heavy build here at the start, so if he were to continue that trend, going with a huge purchase like those Assault Space Marines, that wouldn't be looking very good for him.
I mean the long builds which Noisy goes for, they are like a little risky, and they're almost literally a gamble. You are spending more and hoping for a bit of a payoff, but there's just some inherent risk to spending a little bit more, and usually spending more also means you're putting your generators down later.
So he just drops his full gen farm as the Banshees come screaming in to cause a little more wreck bleed.
So at least one of those generators is going to go down, to be honest, if not like more than one.
Those Banshees actually snuck in on like the one bit of land that Noisy didn't have covered with sight. He had the north and he had the east and the west covered, and they went right down the center there.
And Noisy is now committing 3 units to forcing off these Howling Banshees. That's keeping them away from the middle VP and letting like the rest of Hammer's forces come out. So he's managed to use the attention of 1 unit, the Howling Banshees, to draw the attention of 3.
Yeah, that does matter. Noisy does have arguably the more mobile army at the moment, though, so he can kind of collapse in on a target and then spread back out very quickly, since he does have those triple scouts. But he just needs to be able to hold somewhere, I think, at this point. And so far, there haven't really been any major engagements. Both players playing very quickly, very evasively. I think maybe getting a grenade on one of these scout squads would be useful, because both sides have really been utilizing the garrisons on this map a lot, trying to avoid that the potential melee. Oh, here goes the nice grenade! Oh!
He doesn't react soon enough. Ouch. Alright, no tac models down so far. Some force melee from the Warp Spider. Exarch possibly doesn't actually go for it.
Yeah, very fortunate that Noisy taking a grenade full on to the face with those tacs didn't lose any models.
Yeah,
these Devastators now pretty in pretty rough position.
Now, I mean, the tough part about trying to use a Devastator in this matchup is that the Warp Spider Exarch counters the Devastators for free right out of the gate.
There are some pretty reasonable garrison positions for the setup teams on both sides, though, so... Yeah, as we can see, if nothing else, the Devastators will be able to either defend the power farm or on the west side of this lower half here, keep an eye on the victory point as well. But as it stands, getting them set up just about anywhere else is not going to work out too well. Oh man, the Shuriken actually not changing targets to that Force Commander, allowing him to get in. Second Shuriken will be able to lock him down. Banshees running around the far side.
The Banshees are being used very, very nicely. Like they're hardly really ever being used directly. They're used like to draw attention, to cap, to bash generators. They're really being like assassins, not really a direct combat unit right now, but being used very, very well. In like the more subtle war of, I don't know how you would even call it, but not like head on.
Yeah, just winning the war of pressure and attrition.
Place again. Managed to scare the Devastators off before they ever even got into melee, and guess where they're going to go next, I bet.
Yep, right to those gens.
Especially now with an Executioner Spear and an Exarch, they'll probably pretty quickly take out the gens. While even less likely to lose a model. But actually they retreat pretty quickly, possibly realize the threat of triple scouts and the Force Commander really close by. Still didn't really lose anything for that, though.
Yeah, still pressured Noisy into reacting. Warp Spider's so good with those garrisons, too. Can just hang out in there, and the scouts can't really do anything about it. Razorback is coming onto the field this time, so it looks like the purchases that we saw Noisy go against last game, he's going to commit to this game.
I think like just another one of the signs of like how good, well, in this case mainly Hammer, is that he really has not been losing many, if any, Banshee models.
No, I mean normally the way, normally you're bleeding Eldar pretty well, and since he hasn't had that bleed, he's been able to constantly keep growing his army and upgrading his army. He's got the full gen farm, he's got the second node up.
Controlling his bleed, to be honest. Here comes the Razorback. 400 hit points right now, no extra armor. Might need it if he potentially has to deal with that Haywire and Bright Lance combo. The Haywire is already upgraded, no Bright Lance yet though.
Yeah, I mean, some people would argue that if you micro your Razorback well, you don't need to worry about that extra armor upgrade. But sometimes, especially with a squad like the Warp Spiders, you're gonna find yourself in a position, right here, even though you're
repair support.
Yeah, arguably, yeah, he does have that crazy triple repair, so he should be able to keep that Razorback fairly healthy. All those scouts won't be able to deal with a Bright Lance, but they'll certainly keep it safe from those Banshees and the Haywire. And just as you were talking about Fire Dragons, there are some Fire Dragons coming onto the field here shortly.
Fire Dragons.
So Haywire with Fire Dragons is going to make short work of that Razorback as well.
I guess that means he really wants to keep his Shuriken cannons, and it makes sense. They really are like pretty crucial just with that suppression, especially with double suppression. Double suppression is quite powerful.
Yeah, Force Commander again now with the Razorback and getting his Thunder Hammer and Teleporter. Doesn't even need to teleport on that first Shuriken because it got. I guess he just wasn't sure if that Force Commander was coming in or not, so he kind of pulled it out. Razorback was moving in as well, so probably a good choice.
Despite the VP lead, I actually feel like Noisy's doing very well now, but he's about to eat a Haywire. Yes, Haywire's going. They're going to get a long distance throw. I think Noisy needs to keep moving back the Razorback, and he's moving it back into a firing arc of a Devastator Marine squad. So we're seeing a lot of just great way to keep the Razorback alive. The Devastator's in the right position. The Scouts are in the position that they can repair, and he actually manages to force HolyHammer off.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a pretty decisive push from Hammer, but Noisy had the perfect positioning on the map that he had some excellent fallback points. He had the Razorback to fall back to the Scouts. He had the Devastator protecting all that, so it would have had to have been a couple pronged attack there from Hammer to really break that Space Marine position apart.
Down in the south, we had some force melee by the Tax on the Dire Avengers. Dire Avengers attempted grenade, but Noisy reacted and actually stepped out of the way and then just went back in to cut up those Dire Avengers, and they just fled out of there.
So this is the first time in the game that Noisy's really had a strong map position.
Yeah, Noisy's looking, I'd say stronger than ever before.
Yeah, upgrades finally coming down on those Scouts. We do have a shotgun to help deal with the Banshees. We got Infiltrate for the Scouts to get some positioning info on the Eldar position. He will be able to see the Bright Lance if he's paying attention and the Shuriken moving in. So yeah, he saw that coming. He was able to pull the Razorback on out of there. Still taking a bit of Bright Lance fire.
Yeah. So he's playing very conservatively with that Razorback. He has upgraded to the extra armor, actually, or the reinforced armor plating, as it is actually called.
But yeah, we can see, I mean, the Razorback is such a huge thorn in the side of Eldar. It really shuts down a lot of the kind of evasive Eldar play that Eldar just dodges around and caps a lot. The DPS on that Razorback heavy bolter on top is actually pretty reasonable and bleeds models very well off of these kind of light infantry Eldar squads. So
off the top of my head, it is 55 DPS piercing, and if I check some stats, it is 55 DPS piercing.
Oh man, so you guys know all the DPS numbers a lot better than I do. I just know, like, this unit can kind of shoot this unit better than the other units.
Well, my memory of DPS and such has come into question lately. I still remember a lot of them, but some of them I haven't been remembering as well lately. Haven't quite been playing as much, to be honest.
Well, I mean, the numbers all change so often. Some people just aren't really into the numbers, and you don't necessarily need to, but it's part of how I learn personally, and for some people it is valuable to like their strategies. Oh no, I'm certainly not discounting the usefulness of that. Oh, nice use of the smoke to allow the Devastator to set up there and get reinforced. I like that. That's an oft underused ability of the Razorback, is that smoke grenade.
Right. That ability really is not used enough, especially like in non-top level games.
I mean, more often than not, you'll just see people use it to like protect the Razorback from going down, but I really like the idea of putting it on a setup team to buy it time to set up and get in position, and that's pretty nice.
And, not only that, but he also did it while it was reinforcing to get more of its models back, keep it out on the field when it was under fire. And on the Razorback itself, it can make the difference between keeping the Razorback alive and losing it.
So yeah, this is turning into quite the match. It was looking early on like Noisy might have been getting the bad end of this, but and again, see, look at this. We're seeing this is speaking of underused tactics in this game, is the ability to scout enemy positions is really useful in any RTS. And like now that he knows where the setup teams are, he can much more confidently decide whether he wants to commit to an engagement or not. He knows that the Bright Lance was on the left.
Yeah, Bright Lance was not in the right place.
And really, he could start pressuring the power farm a little bit here if he wanted to.
Now, I mean, I do have to say, I'm still a little bit angry that after this round, like, one of these players is going to get eliminated in round 2, and I would have liked to see something like this in the finals, or at least the semifinals.
Oh man, that Banshee Exarch was the first one to go down. That's always frustrating. We're seeing the Wraith Lord come out yet again. So instead of the Dark Reapers this time, we saw the Fire Dragons come out in response to the Razorback. But beyond that, pretty much the same build orders that we saw before, but a very different game. Noisy decided not to go for the Assault Space Marines. Still went with the double tax, dropping that second squad attacks down, giving him a surprising amount of firepower here in the mid game.
Yeah, he's got a huge amount of firepower right now between the Razorback, 2 squads of tax. One of them has the Sergeant. The other one, I think, yeah, the other one does as well. Yeah. And Force Commander this time did just straight up switch to the Power Fist. And I mean, I think that actually really could reduce just what the Razorback can do. It's just got to be a lot more careful than if the Force Commander had the Thunderhammer.
I'm not sure. I think he had the Power Fist is more viable this game because he does have the Devastator to fall back to, so he can pull the Razorback into that firing arc and keep any melee or ranged squads reasonably under control. So he doesn't need the Force Commander as much of a controlling force. He also has double Scout Shotguns as well this time around.
You're right. Just noticed that. Yeah, I was even wondering if he was going to change the Devastator to a las cannon. But that would give up that suppression, and I think, yeah, what you pointed out, that suppression right now is really valuable for Noisy and his ability to control the Eldar and use it as a fallback point.
Yeah, I think even if he's not able to destroy the Wraith Lord right now, the Power Fist and the Rocket Launcher are enough of a threat to at least keep it under control for the time being. The Force Commander does get pushed off, though, so that might be an opportunity for this Wraith Lord to push on in. But as it stands right now...
What is HolyHammer going to do here?
He needs to deal with that Razorback. I'm surprised.
Right, he's going to try to get sight.
I'm actually surprised that he went for the Shuriken instead of the Bright Lance here. I mean, I guess once he does deal with the Razorback, he doesn't want to be over committed to anti-vehicle. But
but I mean, the Razorback is being such a pain right now.
No, it's giving Noisy not only that rock, that Razorback rock that he can lean up against, but it's allowing him to stay on the field almost indefinitely. Like, that Devastator hasn't retreated. The only thing that HolyHammer's managed to push off in the last several minutes here is that Force Commander.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a level of Razorback play that, I mean, most of the time I just don't see this. Until we have a tournament like this.
Yeah, oftentimes people just tend to overextend that Razorback. Now we're seeing a pair of both infiltrated scouts now moving in on that Warp Spider, knocking him over twice and forcing him off of the field. Force Commander's healed up and back out as well. That's also another reinforcement point. Even if he had lost a couple scouts over there, he could have popped them right back out because that drop pod is still up. We've got a big Eldar push coming in here on this Razorback. Doesn't look like he has a snare ready for it, though. The Warp Spiders weren't along with this push. I think if a snare had gone down there, that would have been, would definitely have been a potential Razorback kill. But those 2 squads attacks with those Sarges are just so beefy. There's without this time having the Dark Reapers out here, he doesn't have a reliable way to bleed those attacks. Oh man, Banshee Exarch going down again.
Force Commander teleports in, but it doesn't seem to quite get what he wants.
Oh,
Finally,
there
does
it
actually
goes.
manage to get a flesh over steel. It's not quite moving in, but the Razorback. Wow, close call, and that's a situation where if the Razorback did not have the extra armor, it would have gone down.
Yeah, definitely. That would have been it for the Razorback, and as it stands, he just narrowly managed to keep that alive, and I think that was enough, though. He got distracted trying to keep the Razorback alive, kind of gave up the potential push he had right there. Razorback had to fall back. Force Commander, since he was changing targets a bunch, didn't really get to focus on any one squad, and Hammer was able to route the push there.
We're seeing Noisy almost play like the opposite of how he usually plays. Usually he's the one like with the early VP lead, the early VP pressure, and sometimes then if he loses in those games, it's because he actually starts losing on later in the game. Here we're seeing him actually managing to really solidify himself in the middle of tier 2 and just hold.
I mean, I know I play a defense-oriented commander, but that's normally how I feel like I have to play against Eldar. Like, you have to hold on in tier 1, and then you really come into your own in tier 2. And like, this is, once you get that tax Sarge, you get some other upgrades, get a Razorback onto the field, you can really hold strong. And now we're seeing where Noisy's now into tier 3, and once some Terminators hit the field, I think that'll pretty much seal
Now,
the position.
Noisy actually just lost some scouts, and I'm pretty sure he actually suicided them to clear up population for some kind of tier 3 unit. Because
Yeah,
he
he
just
was-
ran them up. They were the Bolter scouts with no upgrades.
Yeah, he's
We
still
might
sitting
finally
at
see
80
the Razorback.
pop.
No, the Razorback still doesn't go down. And he's actually going to make it a Predator.
So no
Which I
Terminators
don't
instead
disagree with.
choosing for the for the vehicle.
I mean,
I
man,
think that vehicle's great. Like the Terminators, when you're dealing with Eldar infantry, Terminators can be really excellent. But that Predator will also be a huge threat to the Wraith Lord. That's kind of
yeah, I
been
mean, that
stomping
Wraith
around.
Lord is going to be almost like irrelevant once that Predator comes out. Las Cannon, or even not, that Predator, the Wraith Lord's already having a lot of trouble doing anything just between the missile attacks as well as the Force Commander with that Power Fist. He's been moving very, very tentatively with
Well,
the
we've
Wraith
been
Lord.
seeing the Force Commander actually switch back last engagement to the Thunderhammer, so we've been seeing Noisy
right.
actually
Yeah,
swap
missed
back
that.
and forth.
You're right. Yeah, I've seen him do this before. He's actually switching back and forth using both.
So it's still anyone's game, but I feel like Noisy with this Predator coming out is definitely going to have the advantage. If HolyHammer can manage to eliminate one or two of these vehicles, he'd definitely be a very different game. And this could be
I
it
think
for the Razorback. Finally
goes
down.
But I mean, I think it's served its purpose, and now we have like a better vehicle coming out.
Well, that said, though, now the thing is that there's still a Haywire grenade on the field, and having two vehicles means at least one of those is always going to be active. So the Haywire will be able to. I mean,
I'll tell you what, though, this Wraith Lord is not getting out of here alive.
no, the rocket's going to come down. One more shot from the Predator takes it out. And I think if Hammer had kept, yeah, he's calling GG right now. If Hammer had managed to keep that Wraith Lord alive, it still would have been a reasonable game. As it stood, I think he still could have standed to fight that one out a little bit longer. With that Haywire grenade, like, any one vehicle is always in danger of going down.
All right, so it's now 1-1 between HolyHammer and Noisy. HolyHammer looks so dominant in that first game, but Noisy bringing it back,
Yeah,
adapting.
even the beginning of that second game, Hammer was playing very well, but coming into tier 2, Noisy just didn't drop a single play really. Like, even as you said, like, he threw those scouts away because he wanted to bring something bigger onto the field.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in that kind of a position where you're throwing units away so that you can get something better, I mean, that's just a sign of like what a dominating position you're in. I always feel like I'm like struggling to just like get units out on the field that will help me.
Right, exactly. But no, Noisy just played that so well. And Hammer, despite I think still having a chance at that game, maybe decided he didn't want a long, drawn-out game where he might have just lost in the end, and decided to call it now, go into the next game fresh. And excuse me for just a moment while this game gets started. I'll be right back.
All right. So if you're still listening, I still gotta say, so I did find out just a little bit about the details about what went on with the seating. Noisy didn't show up in time. Tex was put in his place, and apparently Noisy came in late pretty much, and just got put in where he landed. Which, I mean, I get it now, and it makes sense, but it's still really, really unfortunate to see HolyHammer and Noisy eliminate each other in round 2. And I enter video game tournaments for some other games. Seeding is a very important part of tournaments to make sure that the players, so that the best players don't eliminate each other early on in the tournament, and then you have in the later rounds people who like don't even really belong there because they didn't have hard matches. All right, you're back?
I'm back.
I received some messages from Torpid about why Noisy and HolyHammer are playing so early on. Apparently Noisy was late, so Tex actually took like his place in the bracket, and when Noisy came late, he ended up getting like basically just put wherever they could fit him.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's unfortunate, but it makes sense. That's kind of what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it really is unfortunate. These are two players who I would potentially like to see in the finals. Whoever does, whichever one of these does win, I would like to see them in the finals against maybe someone like Toylali. I know Toylali does not like to play HolyHammer. He's not too fond of the guy. But
No, they have a pretty solid tournament history.
but if he can make it, like if he can make it a match, like if and or even win, Toylali has beaten Hammer in the past.
No, it's happened. I feel like you want to, like, even so, he still plays really well, but
the last
getting
time
Hammer
was
on tilt
3-0 in Hammer's favor.
But that's the thing. Like, once you get one win against Hammer, like, I mean, I don't know if that last game was a rage quit once the Wraith Lord go down or just an actual admission.
I don't think so. I mean, he was just not in a strong position. A Predator was out on the field. He lost his Wraith Lord. He was still in Tier 2, and his resource income, both his resources in the bank and his resource income, were pretty terrible.
Right. I agree.
He was not in a strong position. If anything, I think he was really like holding on when he probably wasn't even going to win. But I mean, he does that. He holds on, and sometimes he does pull out the victory, like in crazy circumstances. But man, this game looks like Noisy's starting with the early VP pressure.
Yeah, with the 2-0 cap. But
yeah, he's got the 2-0 cap, but now we've got the Warp Spider Exarch on Noisy's natural.
Yeah, and that's going to be probably a constant theme throughout this match if he can't control that Warp Spider. That Warp Spider's always going to be up there decapping that natural VP.
You know, I think I remember watching old Harlequin cast, and seeing this map as a pick for the Warp Spider Exarch.
Oh, yeah,
because
definitely.
of the way he can easily access both of the natural VPs
Yeah,
on his side and the opponent's side.
Choco, the Warp Spire player of old.
It probably was even a match of Choco versus someone. I played Choco once.
Yeah, he's not really been around since
he came back briefly. I played a game in him once, and I was winning, and then he like just won out on experience or something. Managed to pull it out in the end. I was like so upset, but well, you know he's good. But anyway, it's not about Choco right now. It's about HolyHammer and Noisy.
Oh, those scouts getting perilously low, but
Wow,
managing to hold
lucky
on.
to not lose a model there. Like he must have retreated like at just the right time, like a second or two longer, and he was losing a model.
So Noisy looks like he's just going to keep that Force Commander there, deny the cap for as long as he can. The Force Commander's in green cover.
Yeah,
so
the Force Commander is pinned here, but yeah, look at how little damage he's taking, just sitting there getting suppressed. But he's pinned here.
But as it stands, like that Shuriken's not going anywhere else. It's not capping. It's now going to start taking some fire from those tacks. And he's keeping the 2-0 cap. Having a 2-0 cap over a 2-1 cap, like people discount how many more VPs that it's literally double the VPs that you're ticking down in that time.
Yeah, and then I mean the triple cap is absolutely brutal. Like the pressure is really on whenever.
Yeah, when you're losing 3 VPs a second, that's pretty terrible. But as it stands, he managed to injure that Shuriken pretty well. It was unfortunate that he had to retreat the tax there. If he had only had to retreat the Force Commander, that would have been fine.
And meanwhile,
I didn't see that. Yeah.
Down. I did not see it actually happen. I just saw the indicator that you see on the mini map when a hero goes down, and I knew.
Right. Those Banshees
like you just see
were
that
waiting.
like that. I don't know what is it, like a hexagon?
Yeah, it's like a hex.
That hexagon. It's just like I knew. And like up until that point, I was thinking like, man, Noisy's looking so strong. I wonder if he's going to take this game too. Because he's got a significant VP lead. Looks like he's really been putting the pressure on HolyHammer. HolyHammer doesn't have as many units. But I think getting that incapacitated on the Force Commander is a nice win for him.
Yeah, that's pretty important. The Force Commander is such a bro too. He just sits there and does sit-ups the whole time until he's strong enough to get back up and go back into the fight.
Yes. He has been hit. Brother, I am hit.
So looking like a dominant position early on from Noisy right now. He's going to probably get both of these generators. Has the Shuriken there to deal with the tax here shortly.
And I mean, just a minute ago, I was going to like call it was a dominant position for Noisy, but, well, really not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Eldar can definitely get those big, quick swings. And especially, I mean, specifically that Force Commander going down on retreat to the Banshees is huge. If he had the Force Commander out right now, he'd be much more able to deal with the current threat. And he's more quickly going for the scout upgrades this time around. He's got the shotguns, he's got infiltrate on the other squad. Oh, but we do have rangers on the field, which now he just spotted. And that actually forced the scouts off that would have been able to get in on that shuriken. As it stands, there's enough Space Marine pressure here to force off the shuriken anyways, but just barely saved his one generator, even going to fix it up. When you have 3 squads of scouts, you can do that, I suppose.
But do you see this webway gate being built in
do,
like kind of that corner, like off where it's going to be a bit harder to detect? And this is the first webway gate we've seen from HolyHammer. But and I imagine we'll see like Banshees come out of it, try to like put more pressure on the generators.
Oh, most definitely. Like that's a nasty position for it. And even if not for the generators, like if Noisy's up on your side of the map pressuring your power farm, you could hop Banshees in that webway gate and get them into the retreat path.
And I mean that spot from the webway gate, it's just one of the best spots possible because Noisy, like, unless an engagement happens there, he's probably not going to walk there. So he's probably only going to discover it if an engagement happens around there. Or once the webway gate starts being used and he knows that he has to look for a webway gate in unlikely places.
Ooh, a good flank coming in with the Banshees. Let's see if the scouts can react in time.
The Banshees, all right, they do manage to force off the Devastators. And I mean, that's just big. That's the main thing he needs, because that clears the way for other units to move forward. Rangers out on the field for the first time in this set.
Yeah, they don't bleed scouts nearly as well as they used to. They don't get a kill per shot anymore, but just weakening them for that Warp Spider. We saw after a shot from those Rangers, 2 scouts dropped almost instantly, so it definitely matters.
All right. Chainswords cut us. I love that little quote for some reason. What else are they gonna do?
No, it's funny some of the things they shout. I love silly Eldar trying to come off so sophisticated, and it's just like, I've got nothing fancy I can say about this situation.
Oh,
the chainswords.
My favorite is the Warlock. Yeah, my favorite is the Warlock with all of his profound quotes. Like, embrace fate or not, it embraces you. He's got the best quotes.
Yeah, the Farseer has some really good ones too. I like both him and the Farseer have some really solid lines.
All right.
Anyways, this time Hammer has the definitive lead on tech. He's in tier 2. Noisy's just now hitting tier 2, and Hammer's either going to be able to bring out those quick Warp Spiders as we've seen before, or even get a quick Wraith Lord on the field if he wanted to.
See the Banshees going up for the bash again, as well as the Dire Avengers, which are actually only now being upgraded to their aspect of Avenger, which I know is much more easily thought of as battle equipment for some. Back from retail. It still has like the battle equipment icon.
Right.
But wow, they're taking out those generators pretty quickly. 2 of them down so far. Can he get a third? He might be paying for it with some models, but it might be worth it anyway.
Even not,
and,
they're focusing on the Banshees, right, so they're just taking almost no damage from these vanilla attacks while they're engaged in melee. Attacks having to pull their shots a little bit so they don't hurt the node themselves.
Wow. Oh
Noisy's
my
calling
God.
GG.
Noisy already calls the GG.
Wow. A decisive final win there for Hammer, knocking Noisy out of the tournament.
So, yeah, unfortunate. I mean, I will say that one thing that's tough for Noisy is that he does live on the West Coast like me. So for him, tournament started at 9 a.m.
Oof, yeah, he doesn't even get time to get warmed up.
I mean, I woke up at like maybe 8:45, and then I'm like, I want to eat some breakfast.
Yeah, I mean, even